You have people at Babel attempting to build a tower to God. And the Lord thwarts their efforts. And he does it by confusing their language. You had everybody speaking one language, so they're going to build their way up to heaven. They're going to work their way up there, and they end up divided. It's a direct contrast to Pentecost, where you had all kinds of different languages. But in the divine initiation, not human initiation, but when God said, they were all united in one language. It's a powerful thing. Human efforts to build holiness always result in disaster. If you look at the life of almost every major religious order, you see a pattern. I think the most famous one is the Franciscans, where you had a guy who wasn't trying to found a religious order, who wasn't trying to do anything but be a saint, named Francis, who lived without shoes, who begged for his food, who lived as the poorest person possible. And it was such an extraordinary life that more and more young men came out to join him. It became an issue. I don't know if you've ever read about this, but literally people were writing the Pope and saying, all of our young men are leaving to live like this. They're living like crazy people. They walk around in tattered clothes and they beg for food and they pray and they work. And eventually the church saw this beautiful work and recognized it and said, this is now a religious order. And within 3 years, they kicked Francis out. Yeah, they kicked him out. When God starts something, one of our immediate responses is to start organizing it, to start categorizing it, to start naming it. What we need is a whole ton of rules and regulations. And within a very short amount of time, that thing that God started becomes a human effort that results in division and anger and in trouble. Now, this is, of course, not speaking against religious orders. I love religious orders. But it's, I think, a warning to all of us and a challenge to all of us that God doesn't need people who are continually describing him to others. God doesn't need us to work hard to create something for him. What God needs is us joined to him and following his lead and trusting not in human skills of organization and planning, although again, those are important, but that our primary thing is, what does God want me to do? What is God calling me to do? My confessor gets after me all the time. He says, don't run ahead of Jesus. Don't run ahead of him. Or in the words of a beautiful priest I know, don't just do something, stand there. So today, let's reject the idea that we can somehow build and categorize our way to heaven, and instead simply follow the voice of the shepherd, to listen to him before we take that next step, and to not crush the work of God with our need to control. Amen? Okay.